Good evening and welcome to the Juneau Community Center for the first of two debates in the race for Dodge County Sheriff. Hi, I'm Craig Warmbold, your moderator for this evening. I'm with WBEV, WXRO, and dailydodge.clom, and I want to welcome you here this evening to the debate that pits the incumbent Sheriff Dale Schmidt against challenger Lieutenant Jim Ketchum. During the debate today, we are going to hear questions from the moderator, myself today, along with the public, and should we have time, the candidates will have an opportunity to ask questions of themselves as well. The format for this evening will begin with questions from the moderator. Those will be limited to responses of 1 minute each, and in addition, each candidate would be allowed a 30-second rebuttal. During the portion of the program where questions are asked of the audience, the candidates will be given an opportunity to answer that in 1 minute. There would be no rebuttal time. And in the portion where the candidates are able to ask questions of themselves, each candidate will be allowed to ask 2 questions, one at a time, and those answers will be limited to 1 minute. Now, the format of the program has a coin flip, so I assume that the coin is up here.
It's done already.
Oh, it's already been done, and that's obviously not been communicated to the moderator, but that's okay. And who might it be, Mr. Petrick, that is going to be going first?
Lieutenant Ketchum.
Okay, very good. And we will begin then with Lieutenant Ketchum here in this first segment. Again, questions from the moderator. The questions were prepared by the sponsor of this event tonight, the Dodge County Sworn Association Local 120. And the first question to you, Lieutenant, yes, sir.
2-minute opening.
Oh. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. I'm glad that that was pointed out. In addition to the 3 segments of questions from the moderator, the audience, and the candidates, there are going to be opening and closing statements that are limited to 2 minutes as well, and each candidate will be given 2 minutes for that. And then, of course, obviously, we will begin here with the opening statements from each candidate. And again, the coin flip went to Lieutenant Jim Ketchum.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for coming tonight. As I said, my name is Jim Ketchum. I'm a lieutenant with the Dodge County Sheriff's Department. I worked for the Sheriff's Office for more than 22 years. I'm running for sheriff because I was compelled to do so by my coworkers, fellow law enforcement officers from this county, and citizens. After much prayerful consideration, my wife and I decided that I would try and run for sheriff because the county deserves better than what we're currently getting. We need somebody who is a true servant leader. My opponent has made claims that he has an aggressive stance on opiate problem in our county. From 2014 through 2017, the Sheriff's Office had 2 or 3 full-time employees in our drug task force. During that time, the Beaver Dam Police Department has 1. The Sheriff's Office has had 75 cocaine or opiate-related arrests during that time. The Beaver Dam Police Department had 132. My opponent has placed a great focus and resources on a crash reduction strategy that simply is not working. January 1st of 2017 through July of 2017, we had 648 traffic crashes in Dodge County. From July 1st of this year through July 28th, when I ran our stats, we were at 700 traffic crashes, 52 more than the previous year. Part of that traffic crash effort was doubling our traffic contacts. First shift more than doubled their traffic contacts this year, and we have not revisited our traffic crash strategy that is not working. We have also forgotten about simple clearance rates, as rape is down 20% clearance rates. Clearance rate for aggravated assaults is down 25%. Additionally, we have had only 24 arrests for 173 burglary cases under Sheriff Schmidt's term in office, a clearance rate of 14%. Time's up.
Thank you very much. That was Lieutenant Jim Ketchum. We now invite We now invite up to the podium the incumbent Sheriff Dale Schmidt. We would ask the audience to, after opening comments, to limit the applause so that we can get through the program efficiently. We now begin with your 2-minute opening statements.
Thank you for everyone for being here, and thank you everybody for putting this debate together tonight. I'm proud to have been your sheriff for the past 3.5 years and couldn't have done the great work without the support of staff and my beautiful wife, Cassandra. She has been more supportive than I ever could have imagined. I have 2 wonderful children, Caitlin, age 4, and Colin, age 2. They're the inspiration for the work that I do for the citizens of Dodge County. We are all members at St. John's Lutheran Church here in Juneau, and Caitlin will be going into 4K here shortly. And I'm also the church softball manager and the commissioner for the league. I'm the member of several service organizations, including the Beaver Dam Rotary Club, where I'm the Service Project Committee Chair. I oversee the Highway Cleanup Project, the Rotary Park Improvement Committee, and I brought the idea forward to spearhead, through my volunteer hours, the Rotary Lights, that new Christmas light program over at Swan Park. I'm a board member for the Greater Watertown Community Health Foundation, and as such, I'm part of the grant committee that just awarded $400,000 in grant funds to southern organizations in southern Dodge County and northern Jefferson. I've been a law enforcement officer since 2000 and in Dodge County since 2004. I was promoted to sergeant in 2012 and elected to sheriff in 2014. I'm a nationally certified drug recognition expert, which means that I'm an expert in identifying the issues in the drug epidemic and drugs that impact the abilities of people to drive vehicles or just in general. I'm also on many other boards and committees and organizations. I'm an adjunct instructor for the Fox Valley Technical College in the Law Enforcement Academy. Finally, I'm the only Republican running in this race. I've been endorsed by the Attorney General, by the Wisconsin Republican Party, or I'm sorry, the Dodge County Republican Party. 50 Wisconsin sheriffs throughout the state have all endorsed me. I've saved the county taxpayers about $1.8 million through unexpended budgets.
Thank you, Sheriff. We appreciate that.
I ask the voters for your support on August 14th.
Each of the candidates have gotten applause, and again, from this point forward, we would ask that you limit applause following the questions that we'll be undertaking. Again, this next segment, questions from the moderator, will be 1-minute answers with 30-second rebuttals. We will allow the candidates to finish a sentence if that sentence is brief in just a few seconds, and there will be a sounder after my requests to have you stop. Jason, can you tell us what that sounder sounds like? So we don't want to hear that. So we'll try not to get to that sounder here as we advance forward. This first question here is going to be directed to the incumbent, Sheriff Dale Schmidt. What do you think is the most pressing issue in Dodge County, and how will you address it?
The most pressing issue continues to be the opioid epidemic and drug epidemic that we have in our county. We continue to address it through a 3-pronged approach. That 3-pronged approach involves treatment, education, and enforcement. Treatment, obviously, is something that I feel very strongly about. I work with a number of different organizations throughout the county, including Care for Dodge County, our own Dodge County Human Services, and we're constantly working, our CJCC, working with the Impaired Driving Court and others. Certainly we move on to the education, getting into the schools, getting out to the public, letting people know how opiates are affecting people, and then our enforcement efforts. Yes, we have only 3, right now only 2 in the drug task force, but we have to do more. We need to continue to bring resources to that drug task force. It's difficult to do with the limited resources that we have available from the county, but we need to work together as a team, getting together to make us successful in that drug epidemic.
We now go to Lieutenant Jim Ketchum.
I do agree with Sheriff Schmidt. The narcotics problem is still the major issue here in the county. And it's not only the opiates, it's crack cocaine, and soon to be methamphetamine from discussions I've had with District Attorney Kurt Klomberg from trends that he has seen in the past. One of my platforms that I'm standing on is having an evidence-based decision-making model where we get together with all stakeholders in the county to form a plan based on evidence. What is the biggest problem we have here in the county? It is the drug problem, it is alcohol problem. It is used to reduce crime, it is used to reduce recidivism, and to make the county a safer and better place for everybody. And I would like to spearhead that has been already implemented in Eau Claire County.
We now go on to our next question, and keeping with the order, that will be directed to the incumbent, Sheriff Dale Schmidt. The county board recently voted to close the old jail known as Pod J. Were you in favor or against that decision, and why?
First, very briefly going back to the evidence-based decision-making my opponent just talked about, we already do that in Dodge County. Our district attorney is spearheading that with his staff. The JPOD discussion, I made a recommendation to the county board, but I also knew that JPOD needed to be closed. I've always wanted JPOD to be closed, told them several times it needed to be closed. We just needed all the information on the table so that we could make an educated decision. That evidence was brought. I did make a recommendation that we continue to continue services in Dodge County because closing J without having a replacement is going to be about a $2 million impact on our budget each year and on services. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard to finalize that budget. But they've made a decision, and we will certainly work with county board and do what we need to. I support the decision they made. I told them that all along. They make a decision, I will support it. That's what we're doing, and that's what we're going to do as we move forward. And we're going to make that budget work, and we're going to continue to do the best we can with the money we have to provide services to the county of Dodge.
The same question to Lieutenant Jim Ketchum. And I would note that we did accidentally skip the rebuttal portion of that first question. I do apologize for that, but now we are on the old jail question. So I could repeat that question. The county board voted to close the old jail, Pod J. Were you in favor or against that decision, and why?
I was in favor of the closing of Pod J. The mechanicals in that building were failing. There were safety issues for both the staff and the inmates. Due to staffing levels at that facility and our main jail, there's been forced overtime of 12 to 16-hour days for many of the staff members. They are overworked. They need a break. And the proposal put forth to keep that place open for 3 more years while adding on to the current jail was not a sound investment. We can't staff what we have now. We're 10 to 11 employees short. And adding on is just going to compound that problem of staffing. The dollar per day has not increased with the costs of housing these inmates over the course of these contracts that we have. We have no long-term permanent contract with the federal government giving us a minimum number of beds per day to make this a sound investment for the next 20 years of $26 million.
Would you like a rebuttal?
Certainly, we don't have a contract currently with them, long-term contract, but this is a program that has worked for 15 years. Regardless, this issue is over. The county board has made a decision. I have supported that decision. We will move forward with closing JPOD. We made a recommendation, and they decided to go in a different direction. That's fine. It's my job to come forward with recommendations and bring forward information. That's exactly what we did. It's closed. The issue is over. Now we move on and we move into the next issue. No need in sitting and dwelling on an issue that's over, and that seems to be what my opponent likes to do, is dwell on things of the past.
30 seconds for a rebuttal.
I'm not the one who introduced this question, so I'm not dwelling on this. I'm simply answering the question that was asked to me. You proposed the expansion of the jail to the county board. That was your proposal. It was not simply giving them information. It was unsound information that was given to them. When there was Dennis Schmidt, Board of Supervisors, Director, head of the building committee, stated there was $6 million less being made in that facility than there has been in the past.
Thank you. We now move on to the next question, and the first individual to get that question would be Lieutenant Jim Ketchum. And we will stay on this topic, and the question is, the county board recently voted to, I guess we could continue with this conversation, not make any additions to the current jail. What is your stance and why?
I agree with their decision not to add on to the jail at this time. As I said, we are about 10 to 11 staff members short in the jail, which is causing forced overtime. Many of the employees are working 12 and 16-hour days, being forced. So at this time, we don't have the staffing to be able to expand. Also, with no long-term contract in place, it's not a sound investment. If we are able to negotiate a long-term contract with the federal government for a minimum number of beds per day, then I believe that we should look at expanding that program. There has been in the past very good revenue made from that. However, the dollar per day per bed has not increased sufficiently to offset the cost of housing these inmates. If we can get a higher price per day for inmates and a minimum number of inmates per day, it could be another revenue source in the future. At this point in time, it is not a sound investment.
Same question to the incumbent, Dale Schmidt.
Certainly we have shortages in our jail as far as staffing concerns, and that has been a concern. And we've worked very hard to try and hire people. We've hired a lot of people. Unfortunately, the training process takes a long time. Unfortunately, it isn't a problem just in Dodge County. It is a problem anywhere there's corrections, anywhere in law enforcement. Sheriffs all over the state are talking about this. Wardens all over the state are talking about this. We certainly have to work at finding ways that we can reduce the amount of overtime on our staff, and we've been trying to do some of those things. As far as J-Pod closing, yes, I made a recommendation, but that's my job, is to make recommendations, like I said. That was a recommendation that came from our finance director. That came from our county administrator. That was a joint recommendation. Just because one county board supervisor has an opinion doesn't mean the opinion of other county supervisors who had differing opinions doesn't also matter. And there were other supervisors on the other side of that coin. It was a difficult problem to address. We brought it the best we could, and we're at where we're at.
Thank you. 30 seconds for rebuttal.
The only thing I would like to add for staffing for the jail and or for the sheriff's office in general, we don't do any recruiting. We used to go to UW-Platteville to Career Day and recruit. We can go to Fox Valley Tech, Madison Area Tech, Waukesha Tech, where they have law enforcement programs, and recruit as we have in the past. As sheriff, I would form a committee to go and start recruiting employees again, instead of simply putting it in the papers and the state hiring bulletin, and try and recruit the best.
30-second rebuttal.
It's great that my opponent finally brings some ideas to the table, because he's been sitting in our administrative meetings for the last several years and never brings ideas to the table. It's been a struggle. It's been something we've been talking about for a long time. But he sits there and he doesn't come up with any ideas until it's time to run for sheriff. I ask for input from my staff. I ask for input from the lieutenants. I ask for the lieutenants to go to their staff and ask them for input and bring it back. And it's very rare that I get any kind of feedback from Lieutenant Ketchum. We would love to go out and do additional recruiting in our community, and it's a great idea.
Thank you. We'll now move to the next question, and we will stay on this topic and give you guys perhaps an opportunity to elaborate on staffing issues. As we talk about this issues with staffing at the jail, not just the jail, also the patrol division, what steps will you take to fill these positions? And we go to the incumbent, Sheriff Dale Schmidt, to begin this round.
Certainly hiring has been an issue in every agency all over. It's an issue that the sheriffs, police chiefs have been getting together talking about. How do we recruit more people into the law enforcement field? It's been tough because of the issues that we went through in the not too distant past. We had a very hard time recruiting staff for patrol, for corrections, and it's not just in Dodge County. It's not just at our police departments. It is across the state. A lot of it has to do with the Training and Standards Board and the restrictions they put on it. We need to continue to work with them to try and come up with better solutions, and we need to continue working on getting people in the door quicker. We eliminated the civil service process to do just that, so that we could get people in the door quicker and train them quicker. But it still takes well over 16 weeks to get somebody hired. That's just the training program. Once we have to send them through the academy, which we're having to do, and they're having to do across the state, it becomes more like 6 months before we're actually able to get somebody hired and on board with our new positions.
We now go to Lieutenant Jim Ketchum with the same question.
I will go back to the recruitment. We have not been doing it. We should be going to university system schools that have law enforcement programs and recruiting potential employees. Also going to the technical college system that have recruit academies and associate programs and recruiting these people. There has been a downside to law enforcement that it's not as popular, but you do have people attending university and tech school, and we're not reaching out to them and trying to recruit them. And that is where we should start. We used to also encourage employees from other police departments to come to our department. We have not been recruiting officers from other agencies. We haven't had a reputation for people to want to come to our agency.
30 seconds for rebuttal. Sheriff Schmidt.
Lieutenant Ketchum was just in an interview where one of the agencies outside of our county wanted to come to Dodge County because of the reputation that we have, and we do have a lot of candidates that we're putting through the process. However, it's not so much that we're not finding candidates, because we do have candidates that are applying. It's the process that we need to go through, and unfortunately, the individuals that we are having conversations with might not make the background. We're seeing that a lot more than we had in the past, and we don't know that when we're initially interviewing somebody until we actually have them go through a background. So it is a very difficult process across the state.
And 30-second rebuttal to Lieutenant Ketchum, should you would like it. He is passing on his rebuttal opportunity there. We have one final question in this segment before we go to questions from the audience. And that question will be directed to Lieutenant Jim Ketchum, the incumbent. Quite simply, why do you want to be sheriff?
As I said in my opening comments, the employees came to me and asked, law enforcement officers from within the county came to me and asked, and citizens came to me and asked that I run. The county deserves better. Our employees deserve better than what they've been getting. We have good employees that want to do good work. They want to be led, they want to be coached. They are not receiving that right now. All you have to do is look at our endorsement lists to see who the employees of the Dodge County Sheriff's Office, who the employees and other law enforcement agencies in this county are following. Thank you.
Incumbent Sheriff Dale Schmidt, same question.
I'm not running for sheriff because I've been asked to do it. I've been doing it because I have a passion for our community, for the safety of our citizens, and for the work that the sheriff needs to do for the citizens of Dodge County. Yes, we need to be there for our employees and do things for our employees, but we also cannot forget about the citizens that we have in Dodge County and that they have a right to have a voice as well. And it's a very tough line to walk when you're trying to do good by the employees and do good by the citizens. Sometimes they don't mesh up, and sometimes tough decisions have to be made. And so that's why I'm running for sheriff. And I'm going to continue to work hard into the next 4 years to make Dodge County a great place to live, work, and visit. That's my mantra, and I'm hopeful that my opponent will get behind some of those initiatives rather than undercut it like we've been seeing so many times over the last 4 years.
Opportunity for rebuttal to Lieutenant Ketchum.
I have dedicated 22 years to the citizens of Dodge County and to the Sheriff's Office. It is not because I have no interest in the citizens of Dodge County. I chose to go into this profession to be of service to the community. I have chose to go into this profession because I like my fellow man. That is why I am the best candidate for sheriff.
And a 30-second rebuttal opportunity for Sheriff Schmidt.
My opponent is a very influential person among the people that work for him, and that's obvious by the people that he has supporting him. And it would be wonderful, the things that we could accomplish, if he would hone in some of that influence towards the employees. Every good leader is supposed to be leading up, and you never gripe down, you always gripe up. If you have issues, you need to come and talk to me, and that has not happened. If you have We need him to get on board with the initiatives we're trying to do, because a lot of the initiatives he's trying to do are things we're already trying to do. But he's not on board with them because it's coming from us. We need his support to help, and we could really do great things for the citizens of Dodge County.
Thank you. We now move on to the next segment. Again, questions from the audience. We have a microphone that is set up in the center aisle here that you will see directly behind myself. There is no microphone in there, as you will see. Oh, mine will go up there? Okay, so let me just take this out here for a second. If you have a question, we ask that you come up here. Feel free to form a line if you would like, and you can ask any question that you like. It is the policy of the sponsors that if your question is considered out of line, they may instruct the candidates that they do not have to answer that question. However, the candidates would be given an opportunity to answer that question should they want to. So now, and don't let me intimidate you because I'm standing here with the microphone. I thought there was another microphone that was going to be here today, but if you'd like to come up and ask a question, you certainly have that opportunity.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Mike Reisman from Beaver Dam. So I have a question for both of you along the same lines, but they're phrased a little bit differently. So I'd like you to keep in mind this time of political discord and strife. Republicans against Democrats, conservatives against liberals. Sheriff Schmidt, to you first. There's been a lot of discussion about your opponent's political affiliation. As sheriff, how does your political affiliation guide you and your decisions as sheriff? And secondly, should a sheriff be political, or should a sheriff simply adhere and enforce the laws of the land?
It's a great question, Mike, and thank you. First, I'm going to answer the second question first. The sheriff is a political position because that's the way it was set up by the Constitution of the state of Wisconsin, and as such, we need to abide by that political persuasion. Going back to the first one, there are certain circumstances surrounding the sheriff that Republican or Democrat does matter. There are people in this race who worry about the Second Amendment, and that is a kind of a political persuasion. But that's not my point. My point here is not that he's Republican or Democrat. If he's a Democrat, fine. Run as a Democrat in the general election. Don't deceive the people by putting it on your campaign registration that you're a Republican when you've always been known as a Democrat, and you are a Democrat. In fact, he admitted that to me at one point in 2013. Don't deceive the people. If you're deceiving the people on your very first thing that you do when you're running for a candidacy, what else is deceitful?
So if I could then, Lieutenant Ketchum. Again, keeping in mind the political discord and strife, Lieutenant Ketchum, my question to you is, if elected, how do you see your political views affecting your decision as sheriff? And again, the same question, should a sheriff be political, or should they simply adhere to and enforce the laws of the land?
I have never had a membership in any political party until I chose to run for sheriff, at which time I joined the Republican Party of Dodge County. I do not believe the office of sheriff is a political position. You should be enforcing the laws without bias for all citizens, no matter what political system they have in their hearts, what they believe in. It is a law enforcement officer's job to enforce the laws without bias, period. And what was your first part, please?
If elected, how do you see your political views affecting your decision as sheriff, which I believe you answered. And then you also answered, should the sheriff be political, or should they simply adhere to enforce the laws of the land? So I think you answered both of them.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Peter Kazmarski. I've been a dispatcher for Dodge County in my 31st year. I've worked for 6 sheriffs. My question is to both of you. I know what your management style is. I want to know how you each interpret how the employees look at your management style and describe that to the public that may not be familiar with it. And since Dale went first last time, I asked Lieutenant Ketchum to start this time.
I believe I have a participative leadership style. I look for input from our employees in decision-making. I believe by allowing participative leadership and having input from our employees, you get more buy-in. You have happier employees. They will have a say, sit at the table, have a say of what's going on, and they will help perform their duties at a higher level. It also helps with retention. If you have employees that have a say in what's going on, you have less employees looking to leave. Oh, my 30 seconds are up.
Our leadership style at the Sheriff's Office is certainly changing, and we're trying to change the culture at the office. And certainly there are hurdles. There are decisions that are made that are at the top, yes. But we try to have a participative relationship with our employees. Unfortunately, it goes back to what I said earlier, though. At every one of our admin meetings, we talk about these things. Same thing with the traffic crash initiative. We asked Lieutenant Ketchum to go back to the employees and ask for input, but he has not brought anything forward. Other lieutenants have. And so what we need is we need somebody in those other positions that will carry the mission forward, who will go and gather information, bring it forward to admin so that we can make educated decisions. We have a number of participative initiatives in the jail. When we put together overtime call-in, we let them make those decisions. There's a number of different initiatives we put together. And with Spillman, bringing that together, we had nothing but employee participation in building that. That was, most of those decisions came from the employees. That's what we want to continue. I appreciate input from staff, and contrary to what's been said, I do have an open door policy. Anybody can come talk to me, and those that are close to me know that.
Thank you.
And we will continue with questions from the audience.
My name is Tom Wincher. I have a question for Sheriff Schmidt, and then Lieutenant Ketchum can follow up with the same question. I wanted to ask about the software program that was recently criticized in the paper. I'm familiar with it. I know it to be one of the best programs available to law enforcement. And I'm wondering, in light of the criticism from the Beaver Dam Police Department, Police and Fire Commission, what is being done to give some training to the police department in Beaver Dam? And Lieutenant Ketchum, what would you do differently to deal with that problem?
Thank you, Tom. What we're doing is we're trying to communicate with the administration of Beaver Dam Police Department. We are trying to provide additional training. We are trying to tweak the processes for them. We want to do that. However, for the last month or better, we have not been allowed to even have a meeting with them to discuss that and to try and change it, to improve it, because we have solutions for them. We can make the processes easier. In fact, we just had an upgrade that took care of one of the issues for them. There are a number of issues there that certainly we can help them address, but we need to have that communication. My staff is ready to go over, sit down, and go through and tweak the processes for them. What they're doing, they don't have to do. We just need to sit down. We need to have that communication. Once we have that communication, we can resolve most of the issues, and they can do things the way that they always have. But we haven't had that ability to have that communication back and forth and come up with the solution. And unfortunately, it's just been that. The biggest problem with any issue you ever have, generally, is communication.
I believe we need to look at the Spillman software, make sure we're using it in the most efficient manner as how it was built, see if there's anything that needs to be changed, look at other agencies to see how they're using the software, and make sure that we are being most efficient with it. The last thing we need to do is put another burden on the taxpayers. We had gone live with the New World software in September of 2013, and by April 30th of 2015, Sheriff Schmidt had a request for proposal to already switch to a new software system. I think we pulled the trigger a little bit too early on New World. I believe at over $1 million to buy the Spillman software and the computers, that we should have taken more time to try and have New World fixed and up and running properly. I don't think we can make that same mistake again and suddenly say Spillman is not the answer and go to a different software system again.
Thank you.
And we will continue to take questions from the audience. I'd like to remind both candidates to lean into the microphones, if you could, just to make sure that everybody is able to hear in the audience. We'll now go to our, and really lean into them if you can, too. We'll now go to our next member of the public with their question.
I'm meaning,
You're okay.
okay. I would like to know, both of you, what's your stance on the Second Amendment?
And I believe we went with Lieutenant Ketchum first. I meant we go to Lieutenant Ketchum first for this one.
I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I grew up in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. I learned how to shoot when I was 5 years old with my father. I believe it's everyone's right to keep and bear arms. I have no inclination on making any recommendations. I have no problems with the concealed carry permit law that we have. I'm a full supporter of the Second Amendment.
I got to really get down to lean in. Yes, I am a firm supporter of the Second Amendment, always have been. Carry concealed weapon advocate. Had a number of people concerned about that when it first came out, and I said 6 months, that's going to go away, that people are going to be concerned, and it really has. And we've had a lot of very good citizens in our county and across the state that are allowed to carry concealed. I think it's a great tool. It helps us to keep safe, and I will always support the Second Amendment. The only thing I will question is with some of the questions surrounding whether or not my opponent is a actual Republican or not. I don't know if I can actually believe what he's saying surrounding the Second Amendment.
We'll go now to our next question from a member of the public.
Can you bring that down a little bit? Thank you. Okay, if my recollection is correct, about 4.5 years ago, Lieutenant Ketchum was offered the position of chief deputy, and worked about at it a couple days and declined it. I have also heard scuttlebutt, and I'd like some feedback on this part, that he has twice in the last 3.5 years offered to self-demote.
And that question was directed to Lieutenant Ketchum. There would be an opportunity for his opponent to also give a 1-minute response.
When Sheriff Todd Nails decided to retire, I was named the interim chief deputy by Sheriff Nails, along with Chief Deputy Blaine Lauersdorf was also going to retire. I did work with Chief Deputy Lauersdorf for a few days, determined that I did not have the experience at the time. I only had 1 year as an administrator under my belt, that the position was not for me. I then stepped down from that position, allowing Scott Smith to work with Chief Deputy Lauersdorf. I also didn't even qualify for the position. At the time, you had to have 3 years as an administrator, a lieutenant or above, and I only had 1, so I couldn't even apply for the full-time position. I have not ever turned in any paperwork, have ever requested to self-demote.
Yes, he did, and was the interim chief deputy for a couple of weeks. And I sat in his office afterwards, and I asked him, "Why did you leave?" He said, "I can't sit up there and do that job." Those are almost exact words. I can't quote that many years ago, but that's almost exactly what he said. I hold in my hands a letter authored by Lieutenant Ketchum, in which that he submitted to the captain at the time, that he wanted to self-demote in February of 2015. He was talked out of that, and it was never submitted to me, but he certainly provided it to the captain at that time. Also, this last December, he went to the union and asked the union if he self-demoted, if he could go back to the union and have his seniority. The union granted that. He never requested to self-demote at that point. However, he made efforts to put that into place so he could self-demote. So you be the judge on what's actually honest here. I actually have paperwork in front of me with it in black and white.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
And we now go to our next member of the public.
No rebuttal?
There is unfortunately no rebuttal, as we mentioned during the format. There is only a rebuttal. According to the rules that were set forth by the sponsor of this program, there's only rebuttal during the moderator portion of the questions. Next question, please.
Thank you. This is for Lieutenant Ketchum. You talked about Spillman, you talked about New World, and when you referenced New World, you said that you would have spent more time trying to make that system work. The county put in many, many hours trying to get it to work. It was never meant for our county. It took us, instead of moving us forward, it took us back. We looked at what, pardon? I just want to know how he arrived at this information that they should have kept New World versus going to Spillman. Thank you.
Many of the aspects in New World were working for patrol. Many of the aspects were working for other people. There were problems with the program. It was live for just over a year. When the decision was made, about 18 months, I believe, in that area, when the decision was made to make requests for extra proposals. We have bugs in Spillman right now. A software system that size, when you're encompassing the jail, dispatch, records management, patrol, you're going to have bugs at any system when you flip the switch. We have bugs in Spillman, we had bugs in New World. I just think we did not take the proper amount of time when it cost the taxpayers another $1 million to switch systems. I believe we owed it to our taxpayers to spend more than 18 months with this program to try and get it to work.
We were live with Spillman for almost 3 years by the time we made the decision to go, or live with New World for almost 3 years before we made that decision. It was a 31-0 vote by the county board to make a switch. There was more time by the IT staff going into New World than any other program in the entire county, well over 2 years into that system. It had serious stability problems, crashed on a regular basis, and when we decided to stop doing upgrades, we finally got some stability out of it. But near the end, when we were getting close to making the switch and we hadn't done those upgrades, unfortunately, we started having stability problems again, and we started having crashes again. So regardless, if we did the upgrade, we would have had to do more work to keep it running than had we just left it alone. It was a horrible system, and thank you for your question.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Andrew, thank you very much for that question. We do have a few more questions here, and we hope to get to all of them. A reminder of the format that each candidate is given 1 minute to respond to a question. If a question is directed at a candidate specifically, then that candidate is given the opportunity to respond. If there is a question that is to both candidates, then both candidates would also be given the chance to respond. And if that is the case, the next question would begin with the incumbent. That next question is directed to both candidates. So we'll go to our next member of the public for these ongoing questions. And it's your microphone.
As the mother and stepmother of college-age daughters, the human trafficking issue is very important to me, especially due to its prevalence in our state and unfortunately right here in Dodge County. This is a crime that our sheriff, whoever that may be, will have to deal with. We need a person of character to handle such a horrific crime. I'm also the wife of a law enforcement officer. An officer's integrity and moral values are of the utmost importance in my eyes. They are and should be held to a much higher standard. I'd like to know where the candidates stand on the issues of integrity and morality.
And again, we will direct this open-ended question. The next individual to go first would be the incumbent again in this case.
Human trafficking has been very important to me, and it was one of my initial initiatives. I went to one of our detectives. I said, I want you to go to human trafficking training because we need to do more to protect the women in our community. We need to get involved, and we need to make cases. We need to arrest these people, and while certainly it's happening all over the county, our focus needs to start on the 3 strip clubs that we have, and we need to move on from there. But that's where it needs to start because that's where it is the most impactful on us as citizens. And we've done that. We've made some arrests. We have brought to light this issue. Had we not started this human trafficking investigation, I don't know that we'd be having these conversations like we are today. And the detective that did this did a fantastic job along with our federal partners and the partners over in Hartford. They worked very hard to make this happen, and we are working very hard to put heavy restrictions on these organizations so that it can't continue. And we also need to continue into the community because it's happening everywhere, all over Dodge County and all over the state.
Sex trafficking is not only going on in the strip clubs, it's an issue in our high schools. I've reached out to Dr. Joy Ippolito from Madison. She heads up the Anti-Human Trafficking Advisory Council, and I would like to attend some of those meetings, get more information on the human trafficking that goes on and sex trafficking. I've also reached out to her. She provided me with information on the human trafficking school that the Division of Criminal Investigation puts on, so we could get more training for our officers here in Dodge County. I've also reached out to, and I'm going to be meeting on Wednesday with the Five Stones. It's an anti-trafficking advocacy group from Beaver Dam, and I want to meet with them and see how we can partnership with their group in the Sheriff's Office to see whatever we could do to help them with their fight against human trafficking.
My question is for both Kira Malloy, Wapan. Wanted to know if you could explain to the audience what the Brady list is and if either of your names are on it.
And seeing as how the incumbent went first with the last one, we will go to Lieutenant Ketchum to answer first in this question.
The Brady list is a list provided to the District Attorney's Office where there has been accusations of giving false statements by a law enforcement officer. And whenever that officer has to testify in court, it has to be provided to the defense. I am not on that list.
Same answer. I am not on that list.
Thanks. As a mother who lost a son to a deadly crash in Dodge County, you both have mentioned crashes. I happen to know, Sheriff Schmidt, you're very proud of your crash reduction efforts, but from what I can tell, the 6 fatalities that have happened this year have not happened in any of those crash reduction zones, and I just want to know what each of you is going to do to assist your team in investigating these crashes, because from what I can tell, for 3 people doing it part-time is not getting the job done. You have one of the most highly trained teams in the state, and yet they're not even being sent out to every crash. Thank you. That's for both of them.
Then we would go to the incumbent, Dale Schmidt, to answer that first.
First of all, what I'm doing is on this Friday, we have a meeting of our committees, and we will be presenting to that committee and then eventually in the county board, with hopes of getting it funded, another patrol deputy with the purpose of assigning them on a full-time basis to the crash investigation team, hopefully freeing up that sergeant that's doing it now in hopes that we can continue to work on those crashes. It is, while you state that we haven't had any fatals in our crash reduction zones, that's good. That means that hopefully it's working. Unfortunately, fortunately, we will never know what crashes were prevented by the efforts that we have out in place. And we have to do something. We continue to ramp up our efforts. We're continuing to revisit those right now, revisit the crash reduction zones. Unfortunately, it's 900 square miles and we can't be everywhere. And unfortunately, we realize that there always will be crash fatalities. We need to do the best we can to both reduce them and investigate them. It can't just be one-sided. We have to do both.
I'm glad to hear that Sheriff Schmidt is going to the county board to try and get a full-time crash investigation position. That it was one of my goals in January after I were to take office if elected sheriff. I believe our crash reduction strategy, as I pointed out earlier, is currently not working. We need to sit down and take a look at our efforts and come up with a new plan. And we need to have our deputies who are sitting out here in the audience and listening at home to be part of that plan. They are the people out working the roads every day, enforcing the laws, and they should have some buy-in and sit down at the table, because they can probably have some good ideas and creative ideas on how we can help reduce traffic crashes in this county.
Good evening. Matt Bublitz. I've worked in law enforcement in Dodge County for 14 years. Dodge County's law enforcement officers work hand in hand with one another, no matter what badge they wear or what patch is on their sleeve or what their political affiliation is. As sheriff, how will you work to repair the relationships between the sheriff's department and local law enforcement agencies?
Unfortunately, there will always be personality conflicts in any kind of an organization, and certainly we have seen some of those, and certainly this election cycle has been a big part of that. And we do need to work on repairing some of those relationships. Sorry, I need to get down further. And we have worked on having communication with some of those agencies. We need to get past this election, and we need to sit down and we need to have good conversations on how we're going to move forward. And I plan to do that. In fact, we've already done that with some of our drug task force initiatives. We did have some issues that were going on in the task force, as was talked about last week on the radio. And it was said that we never had any kind of communication. But we sat down with all the chiefs, and we've had a discussion, and we've started to make progress in those areas. We came to some good agreements. We just need to continue to communicate and get past some of those issues. Right now, I think this election is a big part of that issue. We just need to get past that and work towards that common goal, which is public safety.
And we will continue to take questions from the audience. If anybody has a question and would like to come up, we do have one individual before, and we would be happy to take a second question from somebody after everybody gets a first opportunity to ask a question. Oh, I apologize, Lieutenant Ketchum. That was just an update in between responses for future reference. We now go to Lieutenant Ketchum.
I have relationships with many of the chiefs already in place in the county. I have good working relationship with our employees and with many law enforcement officers in the county. For myself to build on those relationships as sheriff, I think would be rather easy. I have a very good working relationship with many of our chiefs now. All you have to do is look at my endorsement list and you will see some of that.
And now we go to our next question, perhaps the final question from the audience. But again, if somebody has a question or if somebody has a second question that they wanted to ask earlier, please feel free to come up.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Ted Engelbart, and I'm from Hustisford. I think we all can agree that policing nowadays is very dangerous and it's costly. Seeing that it's very costly, I think we all can agree with that also. I'd like to know, Sheriff, what measures have you implemented since you've been Sheriff to reduce your spending? And going to Lieutenant, what measures would you implement to reduce spending?
Because that is directed at both of you, it was on Lieutenant Ketchum to answer first in the order, so if we could go to Lieutenant Ketchum for that.
We need to be fiscally responsible with our taxpayers' dollars. Our enforcement efforts that we are putting forth right now have not been working. We're spending numerous amounts of time on the road, gasoline on our vehicles. We need to take an entire look at our department and look at where our costs are going and where we can reroute those to best benefit our county. We have been spending money on equipment that is unnecessary. An automatic license plate reader was a $20,000 purchase. Although good in theory, it is more suited for bigger cities. Tag text slate, a $9,000 purchase for our detectives area. Although good in theory, could have been utilized by a whiteboard. There are areas that we have had a little bit of wasteful spending, in my opinion, that could be utilized more prudently in the future.
Every administrator is going to have a different opinion on what's wasteful spending and what's not wasteful spending. Bottom line is over the last 3.5 years, we've worked very hard to make sure that we stay within our budget. We have come in under budget each of the last 3 years. We've got a lot of donations. We've worked very hard to cut costs. Spend it wisely. Yes, some of the purchases that he talks about were made, but we felt that it was important for the productivity of our staff. At the end of the day, we've saved the taxpayers about $1.8 million over the last 3 years, and if you take out, even generously, the costs that he's talking about, that brings us to $1.7 million that we've saved. That's a lot of money that has been returned to the budget. That's a lot of money that we didn't spend. There's a lot of donations that we brought in. We've worked with the community to pay for the tactical rifle plate vests for all our patrol deputies and the helmets for our deputies. There's a lot of money that has been saved over the last several years, and we don't, when we put together a budget, it's always hard, and we have to make difficult choices at the end of that year, and this year will be no different, but it's a tough process. We've been working hard.
And we will continue to take questions from the audience. If the next question is directed to both candidates, we would begin with the incumbent.
Yes, for both candidates. As law enforcement officers, I would like your opinion of the current issue of the legalization of recreational marijuana.
We go to the incumbent for this.
I don't believe it's a good idea, and certainly that's a debate for the legislature, and certainly is going to be back and forth. There's been a lot of talk about legalization of marijuana out west. We've seen a lot of increase in fatal crashes, a lot of increase in other negative repercussions as a result. We have enough issues with alcohol. Why are we going to legalize marijuana on top of it? I think there are better issues that our legislature can take up rather than deal with legalization of marijuana. And I am firmly opposed to that, and I frankly don't see it happening anytime in the near future. May there be some exceptions for some medical purposes? That's possible. But again, that's for the legislature to decide. And seeing the fatal crashes that I've seen as a result of alcohol and drugs, I don't want to see that legalized. I just don't think it's going to be a positive effort for our positive or impactful for our community. I think it's going to degrade the quality of life here.
I definitely see the purpose of it for medicinal purposes. There is plenty of research out there to support medicinal purposes for the legalization of marijuana. I have mixed feelings as to whether that should be just open as in some other states. I agree with Sheriff Schmidt. It could create some traffic crash issues. We do have our restricted controlled substance law, which I would hate to see people using recreational use, violating that law, getting themselves into an awful lot of trouble, not thinking things through. We have plenty of traffic crashes, fatalities going on. I would hate to see those numbers increased by the increased use of recreational marijuana.
We will continue to take questions from the audience, and if the next question is directed to both candidates, we would begin with Lieutenant Ketchum.
My question is for Dale Schmidt. If you are doing such a great job as a sheriff, how do you explain the fact that your opponent has received endorsements from all 5 former living sheriffs, the people who sat in that chair? They have received the endorsement of 29 of the 40 sworn deputies, which is 72.5%. And they have received the he has received the endorsement of the entire Beaver Dam Police Department and Fire Department.
Well, first of all, that isn't all the sworn deputies. That's all of the sworn union. All of the sworn deputies total about 60. So that percentage significantly changes when you're talking about a lot of the other employees who are not feeling comfortable with coming out and supporting me. And I've had a number of them come out to me and tell me that they do support me. And they just don't feel comfortable because of the environment, the political environment that's out there right now. And that's fine, because endorsements are great. And I have endorsements too. I have 50 sitting sheriffs right now that do endorse me. And I do have law enforcement officers in the county that do endorse me. There's law enforcement officers out there at other agencies, again, that will not come forward because of the political environment that's out there right now, and they don't want to be put in that position. They're the quiet ones. I'm not saying that being loud is wrong. It's just that they're quiet. And they are out there. They do support me. And I think we need to recognize the fact that it isn't everybody as is being made out, but it is strongly union support that's doing that.
And the rules do allow both candidates to respond to all questions, should you want to. We will take another question from the audience then.
Okay, my question is related to Dale Schmidt, referencing the 1.2 million or whatever revenue coming from the jail system. I guess I'm on the county board. I'm available to all of the information that was gathered on the study on that. And in all reality, Dale, we had a $15.2 million expense to chase a $9 million income. There's no doubt there's income, but you have to look at the expense. The board notoriously stood behind no build. They saw this as a boondoggle that it's always been. The increases have not been coming on those prisoners, on the cost of those prisoners. Since since 2010, the cost of the health insurance on those officers probably went up 45%. That means if they go up 45%, the revenue should go up 45%. Didn't happen. And so my question to you is, where do you feel your reporting to the board as far as the last 3 attempts at anything that you tried to do was shot down? Hiring of an additional officer, closing the J-pod, and continuing the jail. At what point are you going to start to respect the county board? That's what my question is for you, Dale.
I think you would have some county board supervisors that are currently in the room that disagree with that statement. That I certainly do respect the county board. There is a segment of the county board right now that certainly has been very vocal about some issues, and I do respect the decisions that are made. Certainly we've had a couple things that we haven't won. I'm not going to win every request that I make to the county board. That's how it works. The county board makes those final decisions. After those decisions have been made and I pitched my recommendation, I respected those decisions and we moved on. That's how it works. I provide information, and if the county board agrees, fantastic. If they don't, we move on. The employee that wasn't hired, so be it. We moved on. We haven't griped about it. We pitched it to the board, they made a decision, and I accepted that. And I think that is respect of the system.
Again, all candidates are afforded a 1-minute opportunity to respond to any question should they want to take it. Lieutenant Ketchum is passing on that opportunity. We have another citizen here who would like to ask a question. Again, a reminder, we're willing to take any questions I should say, not comments, questions from the audience. So this would be force of habit, I'm sorry. This would be the last opportunity should you want to ask a question to the candidates.
Good evening, guys. My name is Linda Theme, and I spent 29 years working as a correctional officer in the jail. My question to both of you is two-part. As you both know, right now we have some officers working 12-hour shifts that are not mandatory, it's a 12-hour shift. So what do you, either one of you, what do you guys propose as far as having the whole jail working 12-hour shifts? And the second part to that question is, if the jail goes to 12-hour shifts, what is stopping the road from going to 12-hour shifts? It's to both of you.
We left off with with Lieutenant Ketchum answering first. It is Sheriff Dale Schmidt's opportunity to answer the first question.
We do have a mixture of 8-hour and 12-hour shifts in the jail, and we're evaluating that. We are evaluating that with staff because we have seen a lot of positive around the state at other agencies that have gone to 12-hour shifts. Those 12-hour shifts have, oftentimes they're not liked by staff at the beginning, but eventually they grow to like them. So we're testing them. We haven't made a decision that we're going to all 12-hour shifts. And in fact, we're reevaluating the programs portion of that right now to see if it's something we continue with or we change that back. Those are things that we are doing. And we are involving the employees who are involved. The ones who are working 12-hour shifts right now have that opportunity to bring back information for us, and has been voluntary. As far as patrol, that's a patrol union thing, and that's dependent on what the union wants to do in their contract and negotiations. So that's certainly not something that I'm proposing at this time, but if it's something they want to do, that's something that they can bring to the table.
And again, if you asked a question previously, we did limit it to one question. Before we let Lieutenant Ketchum answer, feel free to come up to the microphone if you have a second question that you'd like to ask. Lieutenant Ketchum?
The majority of the employees that I have heard from on this subject are not in favor of 12-hour shifts, but I would be willing to look at and evaluate what is in the best interest of the department and our employees. I understand the programs personnel that Sheriff Schmidt just spoke about are not overly thrilled with the 12-hour shifts, but we have to see what's in the best interest and most efficient for the department.
Guess maybe I can bookend this debate. So this question is directed at Sheriff Schmidt. I've heard that there has been discussion over social media in regards to the endorsement of your opponent, James Ketchum, in this election. And I would ask that you confirm or deny a response to a post on a Facebook media page regarding And I'll paraphrase because I did not see it. As I understand, it was deleted from the page. But the general consensus I heard was that you felt as though the association that's putting on this debate tonight had pressured or strong-armed individuals into endorsing your opponent. And again, the post is no longer visible, and I would like your response to that if you could, please.
First of all, the post is no longer visible because it strongly impacted, there were a lot of the responses strongly impacted members of my family, just so that's out there as to why it's no longer visible. That is incorrect. It may have, I think maybe it was misunderstood. The statement was regarding other employees who have not endorsed, who have not made decisions, who do support me, do not feel comfortable coming out and supporting me because of the way that it's been presented by some of the more vocal employees. That was the gist of it. Certainly nobody, I never, if it came out that way, it certainly wasn't intended, but I never made any statement that other people were strong-armed into supporting him.
Thank you.
And again, per the format, both candidates are afforded 1 minute to respond to any question. Lieutenant Ketchum appears to be passing on that opportunity. We do have one more question from the audience we'll be happy to take.
Hi, I'm Kathy Vergens. I work at the Sheriff's Office. This question is for Lieutenant Ketchum. You've been painted as a not-so-good employee here tonight, and I'm wondering if you would share with us if you've ever had any negative yearly evaluations.
I have not. I have received positive evaluations for 22 years with the Sheriff's Office whenever we started our yearly evaluations. I believe actions speak louder than words. I was approached in 2015 by the incumbent and asked to take over as the SWAT team commander. It's one of the most important roles within the Sheriff's Office, being the administrator for training, equipping our men and women that do the most dangerous job and the most dangerous assignments when called upon. I don't believe that is given to a bad employee. I believe that is given to one of the most trusted administrators.
Again, all candidates are given 1 minute to respond to any question asked.
Over the last several years, we have identified things that have been concerning. And I did trust Jim with a lot of things. I worked for him for a long time. I understood Jim. I understood a lot of things, but over the last several years, even before I was sheriff, there was a lot of negativity that was starting to come out, which led to the letter that I talked about, where he was stressed and couldn't do the job anymore, as he said, and he wanted to go back to be a patrol deputy. Those were the words in that letter. And we've had a lot of negativity. There's a lot of employees in this room who have gone to him with concerns, and the response has been, that's not my job. And we hear that a lot. And it's another lieutenant's job, or it's another well, when we need to work together as a team. That's not being part of teamwork. Take that issue and go to that lieutenant. Don't tell an employee that's not my job. That's undermining the authority of those other individuals who are bringing those concerns.
And we'll continue to entertain questions from the audience, and we will continue with that. The last individual that, when a question was directed toward both of them, that went was the sheriff. If another question is directed toward both candidates, Lieutenant Ketchum would be the next to answer that first.
Gentlemen, I suspect that both of you are familiar with the restorative justice programs. So my question to both of you, Sheriff, for you, do you presently encourage your deputies to get involved with the restorative justice programs? And my question to you, Lieutenant, if you are voted in as sheriff, would you encourage your deputies to participate in those programs?
So again, we'll begin with Lieutenant Ketchum on that one.
Currently, the restorative justice program folded here in Dodge County. One of the attorneys that had been running it in the interim has taken a new position within the Corporation Counsel's office, and it is no longer in effect the restorative justice program that had been running for many years. I believe started under either Steve Fitzgerald or Todd Nails' term as sheriff?
Yes, I agree. We did support it. It was, I believe, fell under the Criminal Justice Collaborating Commission, which I believe would run that now, but it doesn't exist currently in Dodge County because that program isn't here. I certainly support that. It was a great program. I think it would be great to find somebody interested in running it again because there are great benefits that come out of that. And I certainly would allow my staff and encourage my staff to be part of that if the need arose. But it just needs to be something that needs to be brought back to the table, and we need to find the right person to run it.
Good evening. Being a victim of a burglary in the past, arrest of burglars is pretty important to me. Sheriff Schmidt, you report 14% clearance rate on burglaries. Explain that pathetic number.
I'd have to go back and research those numbers. I know it was presented tonight, but I don't know that that's accurate. I would have to go back and look. And I certainly can't formulate a response between now and the next debate on that. There are a lot of different numbers that are out there, and I will have to research it and get back to you. I can't just make up a response for you here on the spot. I know we have cleared a number of burglaries, and we had a large burglary spree last summer that we cleared, and there were a lot of them, and that was a credit to our detective division, and I will evaluate that and get back to you.
Lieutenant Ketchum, if you would wish to respond, you're welcome to.
I will just add that the numbers are accurate. They are right from the Uniform Crime Reporting website.
And we would entertain second questions from anybody in the audience. In lieu of any members of the audience coming forward, we will go now to the final format segment of the evening, and that is an opportunity for the candidates to ask a question of each other. And we will be going, as soon as I find out who won the coin flip, we'll be beginning this with Lieutenant Jim Ketchum, the challenger in the race for Dodge County Sheriff, asking the incumbent Sheriff Dale Schmidt a question. Now, as part of this format, each individual candidate is allowed to ask 2 questions. One candidate will ask a question, then the other candidate, and then so on. Those candidates will be given 1 minute to respond. There is no opportunity for rebuttal during this segment either. So again, we will begin here with Lieutenant Jim Ketchum asking a question of the incumbent Sheriff Dale Schmidt.
Based on the current information available regarding your fractured, tense relationships with subordinates and the Beaver Dam Police Department, what steps have you taken to improve relationships between you and your subordinates and the other departments?
Again, unfortunately, the politics involved in this debate or this election have made it very difficult to have those communications because there are a lot of feelings on one side or the other. We need to have those conversations, and I do have an open door policy. I need people to come and talk to me. I need people who are bringing issues out in the campaign to rather bring them to me in person. Certainly there are issues where employees have come to me, and certainly we have had to make tough decisions, and tough decisions are sometimes difficult to make, and employees don't always like to hear that. We will continue to work with those employees. I will continue to work with the chiefs. I do have a good working relationship with the vast majority of police chiefs in this county. There are a handful we need to do some work on. I acknowledge that. I acknowledge we have some work to do with the employees, but we need the influential leaders like Jim who do have influence with some of those to get on board and help us do that. We need to be on the same team rather than pitting each other against each other.
And now, incumbent Sheriff Dale Schmidt has an opportunity to ask a question of his challenger, Lieutenant Jim Ketchum.
Well, I have to ad-lib again because we have so many good questions. Some of mine were taken already. Over the last 3 years, I have asked our admin staff to put together submissions for annual performance objectives, and all admin staff are encouraged to seek input from staff. We have monthly admin meetings to provide input, and that's expected. Can you please tell us one initiative that you have brought forward to administration over the last 3.5 years for implementation so that we could make things better for the citizens of Dodge County?
Myself, Amy Nails, the Emergency Management Director for Dodge County, Dean Hopp, Mike Reisman, and several members of our SWAT team brought forward the Rescue Task Force training that was presented 7 times over the last year to help move our department forward in providing services in the event that we were to have an active shooter situation. That training was offered to all law enforcement officers in the county. It was offered to all emergency medical personnel in the county and all firefighters in the county. And that collaborative group worked together to bring that training forward. And I was part of that group.
And now Lieutenant Jim Ketchum has an opportunity to ask a second and final question of the incumbent Dale Schmidt.
Did you or anyone associated with your campaign recently use social media to accuse employees of bullying or harassing others supporting myself, only to delete the post when they rose up to defend themselves? And if so, explain why.
I'll use a court term that was asked and answered. No, I did not to say anybody was bullying people to endorse you. They were bullied not to endorse me. And if that was misunderstood, I apologize for that. But there are individuals who support me that work at the office who will not openly come out and support me because of that bullying from your side. And it's unfortunate because they have loud voices. Or they have voices too, and they're not being heard. And I will tell you that I have employees who have been sitting in their offices crying as a result of that. And that's not acceptable.
And now the incumbent, Sheriff Dale Schmidt, has an opportunity to ask his second question, and this is the final question as part of this format segment. The question directed to his opponent, Lieutenant Jim Ketchum.
The impaired driving court and the alcohol treatment court, it's no longer TAD, are both drug and alcohol courts that we have in Dodge County. We have and the DA's office is working very hard to come up with the evidence-based practices as you're talking about. So that's already occurring. But what my question is, have you met with any of the alcohol treatment or impaired driving court individuals regarding the impaired driving court or any of that? Have you met with them to find out more information so that you can adequately speak on those topics?
I have met with Judge Fitzinger to cover some of the information with the alcohol court. I would be more than happy to move forward. And the evidence-based decision-making model is not done by one department. It is done as a collaborative effort through the Sheriff's Office, police departments, human services, the district attorney's office, and our judges. So if the district attorney is working on something, it is not in the model that Eau Claire is using, where it is a collaborative effort by all stakeholders within the county.
And that concludes that segment of the debate this evening between the candidates for Dodge County Sheriff. We now go to the closing statements portion of the evening, where each candidate is given 2 minutes to make their closing statements. Because the first candidate to make opening statements was the challenger, Lieutenant Jim Ketchum, in this segment, the first candidate that gets an opportunity to make the closing statements would be the incumbent Sheriff Dale Schmidt.
Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight and for being informed. On August 14th, I ask that you go to the polls and re-elect me as your sheriff for another 4 years. We've had a very successful 4 years, and there's a lot of work to do. We have a lot of programs that we have brought forward. You've heard positive about our campaign, and unfortunately from the other side, it's been a lot of negative talking also about me. There hasn't been a whole lot of depth coming from the other side. It's been 100%, well, I won't say 100%, but I will say a very high percentage of just attacking. Is that what you want? I want to continue to have a positive perception at the Sheriff's Office. I want to continue to move this agency forward. We've had a lot of projects we put into place. Project Lifesaver to aid lost and loved ones. Child Abduction Response Team, which we implemented over the last 4 years to search for missing, kidnapped children, so we're ready to go. We've brought awareness to sex trafficking by the initiatives that we put into place, and we want to make that bigger. That's very important. We brought treatment, education, and enforcement efforts to our opioid issues. We brought a unified leadership approach, not an article out of a magazine, but unified leadership approach, and that of leadership and police organizations, something endorsed by the Police Chiefs Association, something endorsed by our own Training and Standards Division, and my opponent refuses to even take part in it. On August 14th, I ask that you re-elect the only Republican candidate in this campaign. We've done great things. We want to continue to do great things. We want to bring a positive attitude and evidence-based approach, which we can do now with the new software system. We want to make Dodge County a great place to live, work, and visit. And again, I look forward to being your sheriff for another 4 years when you vote for Dale Schmidt on August 14th. Thank you.
And we now go to Lieutenant Jim Ketchum to make his closing statements.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for those who are listening at home. I have more than 22 years of dedicated service to the Dodge County Sheriff's Office, more than 14 years as a supervisor. That's longer than my opponent has been with the Sheriff's Office. I've been an administrator with the Sheriff's Office for more than 6 years. It's longer than my opponent has had any supervisory role with the department. I have supervised or been the administrator for most everything we've done within the patrol division. If elected sheriff, I will make sound financial decisions based on data. I can tell the difference between a want and a need, and will only be purchasing our needs. I would involve stakeholders to create buy-in. I will use specific and timely performance indicators to determine progress or the lack thereof. If all we ever talk about is success, then maybe we aren't setting the bar high enough. Mistakes can and will happen. If they do, I will own up to them, and I will learn from them, and we will move on. Finally, there is no doubt that there is a crisis of confidence in the Sheriff's Office and the Sheriff's ability to lead. Of those who have stepped forward to endorse me, I have 29 Dodge County sworn employees to my opponent's 2. I have 17 correctional officers to my opponent's 0. I have 108 current or former Dodge County law enforcement officers endorsing my candidacy. The sheriff has 9. I'm not sure what's more disturbing, those numbers or his unwillingness to address them. I am the person that would be able to heal the damaged relationships within our department and with other law enforcement agencies in the county. I want our officers to enjoy and embrace their jobs again. I know that's the best way to make Dodge County a better and safer place for everyone. Thank you.
And that concludes this evening's debate here at the Juneau Community Center in Juneau. We do want to thank the host agency, the Dodge County Sworn Association Local 120, for this debate this evening. And we'd like to thank all of you for joining us both at home and here at the Juneau Community Center. We also want to extend a thank you to the officials with the Juneau Community Center for helping to facilitate this evening's debate. And we do want to remind you that there is a second debate that will be taking place between the candidates for Dodge County Sheriff. That is on Wednesday, August 8th at 7 p.m. That is sponsored by the Beaver Dam Chamber of Commerce, and that will be at the Beaver Dam Veteran Center on Bickel Avenue in Beaver Dam. Again, you could look for that to be streamed on dailydodge.clom in audio and video format, and also aired live on one of our radio stations that evening. We do want to thank, again, everybody for joining us from the Juneau Community Center this evening, including the candidates for Dodge County Sheriff, the challenger, Lieutenant Jim Ketchum, thank you, and the incumbent, Dale Schmidt. And a final reminder to get out there and vote on August 14th. And that is going to do it for the debate.
how to end it.